All right, y'all, this is the third one ever, and you guys know I love to sit down and do some podcasts. I've done some in the past, but this cameo is about Geeks 5 Ever live podcast. If you guys check them out, shout out to you, but if you haven't heard of them, go check them out. I recommend them. Once again, thank you. I love anything related to anime, gaming, geek stuff. I love that. I'm also a wrestler. That doesn't mean those two things can't mix, but yeah, keep up the great work, guys, and thank you for booking me for this cameo.
Hello, what is up, everybody? I am Jesse Goku, also known as El Oso de Rey de Mexico, and today we're going to be talking about something very special. It's a story. It's a small piece that was posted by the John S. Randall piece page. The picture is also taken from them. It's from the original Peanuts comic book, and it talks about today in history, July 31st, the introduction of Franklin to the Peanuts comic. This is the date is set for July 31st, 1968. So we're going to go ahead and read the article. On July 31st, 1968, a young black man was reading the newspaper when he saw something that he'd never seen before. With tears in his eyes, he started running and screaming throughout the house, calling for his mom. He would show his mom, and she would gasp, seeing something that she thought she would never see in her lifetime. Throughout the nation, there was a similar reaction. What they saw was Franklin Armstrong's first appearance on the iconic comic strip Peanuts. Franklin would be 50 years old this year. Franklin was born after a school teacher, Harriet Glickman, had written a letter to the creator Charles M. Schulz after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was shot to death outside his Memphis hotel room. Glickman, who had kids of her own and having worked with kids, was especially aware of the power of comics among the young. Quotate, and I quote, and my feelings at the time was that I realized that black kids and white kids never saw themselves depicted together in classrooms. She would say, in quotation, she would say. She would write, quotation, since the death of Martin Luther King, I've been asking myself what can I do to help change those conditions in our society which led to the assassination and which contribute to the vast sea of misunderstanding, hate, fear, and violence, in quotation. Glickman asked Schulz if he could consider adding a black character to his popular comic strip, which she had hoped would bring the community together and show people of color that they are not excluded from American society. She had written to others as well, but the others feared it was too soon, that it may be too costly to their careers, and the syndicate would drop them if they dared to do something like that. Charles Schulz did not have to respond to her letters. He could have just completely ignored it, and everybody would have just forgotten about it. But Schulz did take the time to respond, saying he was intrigued with the idea, but wasn't sure whether it would be right. Coming from him, he didn't want to make matters worse. He felt it may sound condescending to the people of color. Glickman did not give up and continued communicating with Schulz, with Schulz surprisingly responding each time. She would even have black friends write to Schulz and explain to him what it would mean to them and gave him some suggestions on how to introduce such a character without offending anybody. This conversation would continue until one day Schulz will tell Glickman to check her newspaper on July 31st, 1968. On that date, the cartoon, as created by Schulz, shows Charlie Brown meeting a new character named Franklin. Other than his color, Franklin was just an ordinary kid who befriends and helps Charlie Brown. Franklin also mentions that his father was over in Vietnam. At the end of the series, which lasted 3 strips, Charlie Brown invites Franklin to spend the night one day so they can continue their friendship. Author note, the original comic strip of Charlie Brown meeting Franklin is attached to the initial comments below. The picture attached here is the Franklin meeting the rest of the Peanuts, including Linus. So, we'll post a link to that as well, so you can see the comment section for yourself. Uh, so, and it goes on to say, I just thought this was a good reintroduction of Franklin to the rest of the world. And it says, "I'm very glad to know you." There was no big announcement. There was no big deal. It was just a natural conversation between two kids, which obvious with obvious differences that didn't matter to them. And the fact that Franklin's father was fighting for the country was also a very strong statement by Schultz. Although Schultz never made a big deal over the inclusion of Franklin, there were many fans, especially in the South, who were very upset by it and made national news. One Southerner editor even said, quotations, "I don't mind you having a black character, but please don't show them in school together," end quotation. It would eventually lead to a conversation between Schultz and the president of the comics distribution company, who was concerned about the introduction of Franklin and how it might affect Schultz's popularity. Many newspapers during that time had threatened to cut the strip. Schultz's response, quotation, I remember telling Larry at the time about Franklin. He wanted me to change it, and he talked about it for a long time on the phone, and I finally sighed and said, "Well, Larry, let's put it this way. Either you print it the way I drew it, or I quit. How's that?" In quotation. Eventually, Franklin became a regular character in the comic strips, and despite complaints, Franklin would be shown sitting in front of Peppermint Patty at school, playing center field on her baseball team. More recently, Franklin is brought up on social media around Thanksgiving time. When the animated 1973 special A Charlie Brown Thanksgiving appears, some people have blamed Schultz for showing Franklin sitting alone on the Thanksgiving table, while other characters sit across from him. But Schultz did not have the same control over the animated cartoon as the television network that he did on his comic strips. The television network had more control than Schultz when it came to the cartoon. But he did have control over his own comic strip, and he courageously decided to make a statement because of one brave school teacher who decided to ask a simple question. Glickman would explain later that our parents were concerned about others, the values that they instilled in us about caring for and appreciating everyone of all colors and backgrounds. This is what we knew we were growing up, and you cared about other people. And so during the years, we were very aware of the issues of racism and civil rights in this country. When during the years when black people had to sit at the back of the bus. Black people couldn't sit on the same seats as restaurants as that you could sit. Every day I would see or read about black children trying to get into school and seeing crowds of white people standing around, spitting on them, yelling at them, and the beatings and the dogs and the hostings and the courage of so many people in that time. In quotation. Because of Glickman, because of Schultz, people around the world were introduced to a little boy named Franklin. And that made a powerful statement to diversity in comics. Now, what did you think about the story so far? Let me know in the comment section below. And would you like for me to do more videos about stuff like this in the future? Now, we are Geeks 5 Ever. We cover everything from comics to video games to music to wrestling. If you can geek out over it, we will comment. And since Peanuts, for those of you that don't know, is a comic strip in the newspaper. And start off, yes, it has cartoon specials, the Merry Christmas Charlie Brown and the other ones. But this is a very powerful statement, especially in what we're going through right now in the United States of America. In the United States, we are going through a movement that is called the Black Lives Matter movement. And there are people that are against it. There are people that are for it. We strongly believe, and we firmly stand with the Black Lives Matter movement, because we believe, yes, we do believe all lives matter, but people of color are under attack right now, and we need to stand with our brothers and sisters, because there are black content creators, there are black gamers, there are black esports competitors. They make video games, they write comics, they draw, they help. There's even a black-owned anime studio right now that's doing really well. So we are here to stand with the community, no matter what race, religion, sex, whatever you no matter who you are, no matter what you look like, and no matter what you identify as. We stand with you. Thank you And let me know in the comments if you would like to see more like this. If you haven't already, please subscribe to us on Facebook. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the little bell for notifications. We're going to start posting videos every day from now on. And we're still going to do our live podcast Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. On Mondays and Fridays, it's at 8 p.m. But Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, it's at 8 p.m. And the podcast is live for 2 hours, and then it goes on Facebook and YouTube so you can watch it at a later date. Eventually, we will make the podcast audio as well, so you can download it and listen to the podcast in your car. Thank you for listening. I'm Jesse Goku, also known as King Mexico, and I'm telling everybody to stay classy.